Hi everyone, my name is Palleonn. I am the regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and today's video of ours will be dedicated to top 10 occupations in demand in Canada for immigration purposes, which actually means that these occupations are in priority in different parts of Canada. And the occupations that I'm going to talk about today are most likely to bring you to Canada. There is a difference between the provinces, which province prefers more this or that occupation, and there is a difference in the language requirement for each profession. And there is also difference of what amount of experience you need to have, but you have to have it. It doesn't have to do anything about with education in the majority of provinces, except probably Saskatchewan, where your education needs to be in the same field as your work experience. In the majority of provinces, you must have at least post-secondary education, sometimes secondary education, but the main accent is put on the amount and number of years of full-time or part-time equivalent of work experience that you have. And this should be also confirmable, which means that if you show that you have work experience as a cook, for example, you must be able to provide reference letters, employment contracts, pay stubs, whatever you have to show that you really have this work experience, and this is crucial and important. It is also important that the documents that prove your work experience indicate exactly what duties and responsibilities you have been doing, which should correspond to the National Occupation Classification of Canada, which is a NOC code, the code that is given to each profession, and there is a description of everything connected with this specific profession, including duties and responsibilities, the overview of the profession, the examples of titles of occupation that are applicable in this specific code. And when we say that this occupation is in demand, it is critical that your reference letter would reflect that you really are what Canadians understand under this or that occupation. So let's start. So as I said, cook. This is one of the top occupations that is needed in Canada, and there are a lot of programs that will support your application, that will nominate you, that will give you a priority in comparison with other candidates if you have at least 2 years, let's say, so 1 to 2 years of work experience during the last 3 to 5 years. It depends on the program and it depends on the stream and location. But I would say that the highest chances are if you have at least 2 years of work experience out of the recent 5 years. It can be, let's take 2015 to 2020. It can be the experience from 2015 till 2017. Or it can be 17 till 19, or it can be present work experience minus 2 years. It doesn't really matter, but it's important that you have cumulatively full-time work experience in the occupation as a cook, for example, and the full-time means 30 to 40 and more hours per week. You may have the equivalent of part-time work experience, which is 20 hours per week, but then it would be not 2 years, but 4 years, as you may understand. The second occupation is mechanic. Everything connected with vehicles, with automobiles, cars. If you can fix it, that's cool. You will probably gain a lot of attention from different parts of Canada, from different provinces, because this is an occupation that is in demand. That is mostly dictated by the fact that majority of Canadians have 2 to 3 cars in the household, and the cars usually break, and they need a lot of mechanics that can work with that. That also will include heavy-duty equipment mechanics for the heavy-duty machines, for trucks, for agricultural equipment, etc. So if you have this work experience, you are pretty much welcome to Canada. Welders. Welders is something super special. It's like a king of everything. Welders are needed everywhere, and this work experience is very important. The work experience must be really professional, because when you come to work as a welder, it's quite evident whether you're really a welder or not. And the companies that employ welders vary very much. They are very different. It may be an agricultural equipment production company, that can be the producer of metal, of whatever it is. Welders are needed in most of the provinces of Canada. If you have the welding work experience, you're very much welcome. Painters, mostly industrial painters, but painters in construction are in demand as well, and that would be Manitoba mostly. That can also be Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, that you can find the employer out there interested in you, and some cities out of rural and northern immigration pilot would also be interested in painters. You also need to prove that you have work experience 1 to 2 years at least. It depends, like as I said, if you apply for Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program, you will probably need to indicate and show, and you will have good chances if you have at least 2 years of work experience out of 5 years. But if you apply under the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, the minimum requirement is 1 year of work experience out of 3 years related to the occupation that is needed. But the more experience you have, the better chances you have, because you should not forget about the competition. If you submit your application and you have just 1 year of needed work experience, and there are several other applicants that submitted their applications with 5, 6, 10 years of work experience, they will be selected and you will not. It just depends on how lucky you are to submit your application in the proper time with the proper competitors. Then let's go further. Woodworking machine operators. This is quite frequent profession that is in demand, because there are a lot of woodworking companies in Canada, and if you have this work experience, you should consider the variety of provinces as well. I would probably emphasize on Manitoba as well, because there are a lot of companies here that need woodworking machine operators, and New Brunswick as well. Truck drivers, you probably heard so many stories about truck drivers, and that's the easiest pathway. That is not the easiest pathway, and you still need to have work experience as a truck driver, because when we speak about truck drivers, this is mostly employer-driven immigration. Means like you have to find an employer and a job offer in order to process your file towards permanent residency in Canada. For that, the employer will never consider your application if you have no work experience whatsoever until you came to Canada and graduated the truck driver's course, for example. So you must have as much as possible work experience as a truck driver. It's not a driver of a simple passenger vehicle. This is the truck driver. The truck is a semi-trailer, big cars that go like through all Canada and United States, and you must have specific, very unique and professional skills in driving such a vehicle, because it's not the same as all other types of cars. Then, bindery equipment operators in printing. So this is mostly about Altona in Manitoba. There is a company out there that is a printing company, and they really are looking for the vast variety of different specialists who can operate printing machines and equipment. If you have this work experience or you are related to a printing industry, you can consider this program for yourself in this city, also showing that you have relevant work experience with printing equipment especially. Early childhood educators, the female profession mostly. So the early childhood educator now is needed in Morden, Manitoba, but for that you need to have an express entry profile, because for the previous, all those that I have just underlined, all those professions can lead you to immigration without an express entry profile, which means you may submit your application with a language level at minimum score of 5555 for IELTS certificate in English, for example. As for the early childhood educators, this is considered to be a highly skilled profession, and for that you will need to have an express entry profile, which means that first and foremost you must satisfy the requirements of federal skilled worker class, to have the educational credentials assessed, and have the minimum of 6.0 for each module of IELTS general examination, sometimes more. So if you are an early childhood educator and you have this work experience, you can contact us. We will just count the points and evaluate your chances whether you will or will not satisfy the requirements of the program with this occupation and what to do to improve your chances. Let's go further. Production workers. These are mostly hands that work in the production process in different factories. That is food processing, pork, all types of meat, grain, whatever, like all types of food production. And sometimes this is the production workers when we speak about production of some types of equipment. If you have this kind of work experience, this is also considered to be a level of occupation that requires 5.0 IELTS from you. And this is really needed in the territory of Manitoba nowadays, but it is also needed throughout Canada, really. Like, there are a lot of positions open for that and looking for the specialists in this area. And last but not the least, the computer programmers. That's not Q&A, okay? These are computer programmers. Like, when you know those languages of programming, I'm not really like very much into the topic, but still, if you are a programmer, then you may qualify for Ontario, a provincial nominee program. You may qualify for Manitoba. Computer programmers are also very much needed. The majority of computer programmers really can submit their application and succeed with express entry without any provincial nomination. But sometimes this is required, firstly, just because you need additional points for the provincial nomination. Sometimes it is much easier because you, as a computer programmer, will know from the very beginning that you're going to a fixed employer and you will have your salary paid in 2 weeks after starting your job. This is also really cool. So these were like 10 occupations that are now considered to be top occupations in demand throughout Canada that will enable your immigration process towards permanent residency. So it's cook, mechanic, welder, painter, woodworking machine operator, truck driver, bindery equipment operators in printing, early childhood educators, production workers in food industry and equipment, and computer programmers. I hope this information was helpful to you. If you have any questions or you would like to assess your chances under more than 70 immigration programs and pathways to Canada, please contact us. You will find all the information and contacts below this video, and we will be glad to inform you of any updates and changes in immigration law, and we'll keep you updated through our YouTube channel. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day.